Hello everyone, we're today with an amazing artist, Kit. Good to have you here with us. Tell us about yourself. What do you do musically? How long have you been doing it? And where did you start?
Cool. So as you can tell from my accent, I'm from Liverpool. So I feel like it's a very musical city. Obviously with the Beatles and stuff, there's always like a musical aspect to life when you're from Liverpool, I think. And then I grew up in a family environment that was quite musical. Like my dad's musical, and then extended
What does he
family.
do?
So he's a guitarist and a singer.
Mm.
He's like semi-professional. He'd be like on going like the pubs and clubs of a weekend and stuff.
Mhm.
But it's just like that thing of having like instruments in the house and hearing music all the time. So then I grew up in that sort of environment, quite luckily. But I think I got to music a bit later than not a lot of people probably would. I was sort of like 13, 14 when I actually like got into guitar and stuff, because that's when I found blues music and things like that's my sort of roots as a musician. As I'm a blues guitar player. So I was listening as like a 13-year-old, listening to like B.B. King, Albert King, Stevie Ray Vaughan, all these guys.
Wow.
And then I just like fell in love with the guitar. I started doing just guitar lessons. And then just really, really got into it. I was probably doing guitar more than studying for school. But so then from there, I've just sort of then got into just writing songs. And then when you start writing songs, you realise that maybe you've got to start singing them. Because especially as songs can be so personable and vulnerable and stuff, that you know
100%.
that it's sort of, it would be a difficult thing to like give a baby to someone else and expect them to sing it how you'd want it to be sung. So then,
Sure.
so I just started singing. Was probably not super confident in it at first. Would shy away and like sing on my own. And then I got a little like recording desk thing. It's like I can't even remember the name of it, but it's just like you plug the instrument in and then just press record. And then my mum and dad found a song that I'd sung and stuff.
Wow.
So from there they were like, oh yeah, you can actually sing. And I was like, okay, cool. So from there then I got more confident with it. And then as a performer, as I said, my dad was like the semi-professional musician, so he would do he had an acoustic duo set he would play once a month. He had like a residency by Alton Road, and he'd have a 15-minute break, and I'd just get up and play a little blues guitar. It was just jamming over backing tracks, really. But it was just a good start where you get used to people just looking at you. I think that's the main thing when people start performing, is when you've got a whole room of people eyes on you. It can be really daunting. So for me, like getting further along as like music is my passion, this is what I want to do, and then doing my own songs, that when I started playing like a little open mic was the first time I remember played the Tavern Company on Allerton Road. They used to do an open mic, I'm not sure if they still do, and I just got up and played like 3 songs. I was petrified, but I realised that the guitar playing in the past, I was used to people like staring at you. I'm sure if I'd not had that experience, that when you get up and you've got everyone looking at you and everyone's attention's on you.
How old were you? 13, 14?
So no, this was a bit later then.
Later.
This would have been maybe I was about 18?
18, okay.
17, 18. But yeah, because before that I was just like guitar player, would just sit for hours and just like play over songs where like B.B. King, and just learn every single riff that he's possibly played in a song. And then it wasn't until I really got into it, it's like, this is what I want to do. That's when the songwriting started, and I was at that point when the songwriting kind of coincided. I started to branch out musically, because there was a time where I would just listen to blues music, like that was it, like 24/7, just blues music. And then I found like Americana and country, which is very much more so focused on songwriting, lyrics, stories. And then when I got into that, it was obviously when you listen to blues music, you're sort of listening to most times for like a virtuoso, like a guitar player or something. Like for me, because I was a guitar player, so I was listening to like Stevie Ray Vaughan and these people with the ear on a guitar. So then when your ear changes to writing songs, it's like a different way of thinking. And I found that with country music and Americana music. So then when I got into that, it was like there's something that like drove me to want to write songs. And I'm like more of like a quieter person, so I think a lot, and there's a lot of the time you want to get the thoughts that are in your head that maybe you don't know how to put into, you can't say things, but you can put them into a song. So there's that always cathartic.
It became a way that you express yourself more freely.
Yeah. Exactly.
So you got into playing an instrument first, then into performing and singing, then into writing a song.
Yeah.
Sorry, I mean writing lyrics.
Writing
lyrics.
And then so from there I just sort of just kept on writing, kept on playing, and I kind of looked like took a life change, because I was meant to be going to university to do sports science. And then realised that was not what I wanted to do. I was just following the path that was laid.
We get to that plan B.
Exactly. I was just sort of just following the normal path that I think a lot of people would, but unless you've got like this creative passion, that would not be fulfilled doing sports science, because it's very like doing tests and like getting an athlete and like measuring all that stuff, which I had no interest in doing. And then this was at the time that music was like really like the passion was burning a lot. So then I just like deferred the uni for a year, and then tried to do music instead. And then luckily I went to Lipper. So I did like the foundation year, because I hadn't had any musical like grades or anything. It was just me in my bedroom listening to songs and playing along with them and learning like the old school way of years ago, maybe of like typical blues guys that don't know theory. It's just very much like it's all in me, it's all intuition and all that stuff. So then so that's when I went to Lipper and really like focused on the craftsmanship of musicianship. It was just like it's like a totally different way of thinking.
So you studied music?
So then I ended up doing a degree in music. Yeah.
Okay.
So I did songwriting and performance in like the umbrella of music.
Do you think that made a difference in who you are as an artist? And
so I've thought about it a lot, because me as a musician, I am more intuitive in terms of like I hear the sounds in my head, rather than I'm not like the mathematician musician where it's like theory knowledge and like they can read all the notes and do everything that way. I am more like it's just like the sounds in my head and I know how to play them. So then going from that mentality is probably not the best if you want to go and study music and there's music theory. So for me, I'm not the greatest with theory. It's like it's kind of like just using different side of your brain, like putting the sounds and putting them into something that's more structured. I just struggle with. So there was that sort of little battle I think you could go through as a musician, where you may be just more creative and expressive, that when something's a bit more like black and white, this is what it is, it can be a bit difficult. And I think just as a guitar player, it could be different. Like we do guitar lessons and it's a lot more technical, and I think for me as a guitar player, it maybe suffered for a bit. I sort of lost the conversation in my head that I was having as I was like hearing the notes come up, hearing what I wanted to play, and it would just travel to my fingers and I'd play it. That then became me thinking from more like a theoretic point of view, like thinking about the chords, but then that can help you then as you go through that struggle of like trying to blend it, and then it just sort of happens. But for me, as a musician, I would say it depends how you are as a musician, because there's lots of ways of being as a musician. There are the musicians that are a lot more structured, they like reading the notes, and there's musicians that are like haven't got a clue what they're playing, they just know it sounds great. Like for me, all the musicians that I grew up listening to and prefer listening to are all in that camp of they couldn't actually tell you what they're playing. They just know it sounds amazing. And they're like, you think of like Jimi Hendrix, who's like just the most genius musician that's ever lived. And he just had everything in his brain and his hands. And I'm not comparing myself to Jimi Hendrix, but like that aspect way of thinking is different.
That's exactly what you're saying is absolutely true, because, sorry to interrupt you, but the thing is, that was actually my conversation with somebody else today, and sometimes industry or maybe the society or the people you're surrounded by, they have like these definitions of what like a musician mean or who a musician is. And sometimes if you, for example, don't fit those criteria or those things, you are not a musician, you know. And I thought, what my personal perspective, my personal opinion is that when you start to be someone, whoever that is, like let's say I want to be a piano player, when you start to be a piano player, there is a beginning, but there is no end. Because it's a journey, it's an ongoing journey that obviously, depending to how much time and effort you want to put into this, you would be like, it would be a hobby, or it would be a career, or it would be whatever you decide, depending to the time and effort you put into this. But obviously, no one can define who you are. If you want to be a singer, you are a singer, but I think you got to show it to yourself that how much time and effort you want to put into this to make it into a serious career or something aside that you do as a hobby. Like exactly what you were saying.
So and then that can go with any sort of like creative industry, really. I think of artists for like more like painting artists and painters and stuff. And I know one that he went to like fine art school and dropped out because he's like total like creative. He just wants the creativity. He doesn't really want to learn the techniques and stuff. So you can in any creative industry, there is that aspect of, there are the ultra creatives who just go there to create, and they have that like burning desire to create things. And then you do have the people that really appreciate the cleverness of something, and like you think of like jazz, and it's all about all the note, like the scales they're playing over the chords and the chords that they're playing. You get people, I've said, like musicians, there's so many different genres and stuff, and in each different genre there's a different way of thinking of like the people who are the best at it. Some people who are more songwriters and stuff, and maybe they're more of the type than like basic instrumentalist on a guitar, but they're really great lyricists. So they don't really have that like music theory thing, but they have like a really creative way of thinking. And then you've got people who are just incredible musicians who can be really expressive and emotional in their playing, but has got incredible theory knowledge, and they know exactly what they're playing, but they don't have to think about it because they've got to that point where the theory has interested them. Like for me, I think theory didn't really interest me that much. So from a musician point of view, I was never really going to dedicate the amount of time it needed to really get theory in me, and then learn how to then use it to my advantage and get it in your brain subconsciously that you're playing this, but you're not actually thinking about it. So that's sort of that point as a musician. And then now I sort of went through uni and then started the new project Kit. I was sort of in my final year of uni. I still work with Mike Halls. He's in Clean Cut Kid, the band. He's someone I've known for years. He sort of taught me guitar and stuff, and he's someone I really looked up to because he's like my guitar teacher years ago, and then he got too busy with his thing. But I sort of always looked up to him as a musician because he's like incredible as a songwriter, musician, everything. So then we started working together in my final year of uni with Rich Turvey, who produces Blossoms and The Coral, people like that. And then we did an EP in my final year. So then when I come out of uni, the plan was 2020, we'll release the EP, then obviously COVID happens. So then that was weird. We're having like meetings and stuff with like labels and stuff pre-COVID, and then when COVID came, like there was just a blanket on everything. No one knew what was going to happen, so everything was off the table. And then in COVID, because a lot of labels were looking for content and their bands couldn't get into studios and stuff, I was quite lucky that there was that middle point, maybe in like the summer, in like July or something, or just before summer, where it seemed things were going to open up. So just before that, I signed the EP off with Lab Records, a Manchester-based label. But then obviously the way the year went, I couldn't get out and gig them, so we just released the EP through lockdown with 4 different singles, and then now I'm only just getting the opportunity to promo it. So we released the EP fully last year, so that is out for everyone to go and listen to.
Guys, make sure you have a listen to it. I'm gonna put the link in the description down below. Make sure you go and give him a follow.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So that was it was such a weird thing to happen, because it was like this exciting thing you dream of when you're younger. Oh yeah, you get signed to a record label and release music through a record label, but it was also like, but I can't promo it. No one knows who I am. So we're just releasing these songs where obviously you've got like the power of a label behind you. They can pull certain strings and they can put money in places to get it, where I couldn't if I released it independently. So I had a bit more traction. One of the songs, The Fire, got synced onto a video game, Dream League Soccer. It's like on like a mobile game. So they got little things off that were quite cool. But it was also really weird that I think the chance of that EP maybe doing better was missed because I couldn't go out and promo it, I couldn't get in front of people and play the songs to people, because still, for me, still like one of the best ways is just getting out in front of people and going to gigs. Like that is the way. Like for me, I've got more like social media follows, because that's important now, and stuff from gigging than I have anything else. So that's super important and super useful, and then I kind of didn't have that chance, and now I'm only just getting the point where the gigs are getting back to normal, but then the festivals are like 2 years backdated. So we're in a bit of a weird time to sort of be starting up a career in the music industry. And then obviously COVID happened, and then TikTok became a thing. Like before COVID, like TikTok wasn't a thing. And now you're hearing stories of people going to labels and stuff and not having enough TikTok followers for them to be signed. And then huge artists like Halsey, who's like one of the biggest artists in the world, can't release an album because she doesn't have enough TikTok engagement or something. So it's a whole brand new world that you constantly ever change, and that you're going to find yourself in music, and you just got to keep up and think this is what, you've got to constantly learn. And as a musician, you're constantly learning anyway. You're never going to know an instrument inside and out to the point that you can know everything about it. So it's the same being an artist and just navigating your way through life and trying to find things. So then I released the EP and got quite a cool things, and then now October 7th, so I don't know when this is coming out, but this like next week is when the single comes out, October 7th, When We Say Goodbye. It's like my new single. And that was cool. I co-wrote that with Mike Halls, and he produced it. Sort of last year, we had it in the back pocket for a while, and now it's like time to put it out there. So yeah, that's pretty much me right up until the point I'm sat here.
So if you had to choose, because you mentioned a couple of the stuff that I want to talk about, so if you had to choose between being signed to a label and being an independent artist, what would be, because obviously each one of them have their own pros and cons, but which one would you choose?
Personally, I think probably the best route to go down is to get a team around you before a label. So we got like management and booking agents, because I don't have at the minute, but I think that's the best way to go, because there's something in the freedom of not having a label telling, like, wanting certain things. Like my new single is in a total different way than the EP. It's like totally different. And this isn't going out on a label or anything. This is just going through just AWOL, just distributed through AWOL. But because of that, we've had the freedom to go, right, this is the sound we want to do, and we're going to change it up. That sound, I think maybe. So the first EP was very much sort of like a lot more American pop, sort of loud, Troye Sivan type vibes that I think there's maybe not a market here for in the UK, especially in Liverpool, because Liverpool's a city, it's very indie band dominated at the minute, so that was always going to be difficult. But now, I think because of me as a musician, all my roots are in older music and stuff, so the new single is more influenced by older music. It's more 70s inspired, but still got like a commercial aspect where it's got like a big chorus and like, but it's from a songwriting point of view, it's very old school songwriting, but the production of it is very, it's modern, and it's a bit different.
So you would choose being an independent
So I would
artist
go
that you
independent,
would gather like a team
around you. I think that's probably the best. And then when you get to a point when you maybe need a label financially, that's when you go. But then the label thing now is a bit of a minefield, with the whole social media thing. A lot of labels are not interested unless you're basically an easy bet.
I think because music industry has gone through the route of a business, an investment. Obviously, as an investment, as an investor, you're looking at how quick I can get a return on this.
Exactly, and that's like the TikTok thing. I don't like bash it too much, but like you hear seeing people with big TikTok pages that are not musical related, like they're doing makeup and then they're getting massive record deals off the back of it, but they're not actually a musician. It's just they've got this huge audience on an app that they can just pitch the music to. So that's what the labels, I don't know, the COVID situation, how much of a hit labels got, and if they're just looking for a quick easy fix in the meantime. But there is things like in the States, huge A&R guys saying like, listen, like lay off the musicians, making them do TikTok because they're not content creators, they're musicians. So yeah, but that's just the minefield of the music industry. It is a business and you're just the product. So I think independent, especially when you're starting out, as we get into labels, you can easily just get lost. Like you could get signed to like Universal tomorrow, but if you haven't got that fan base already, you're not going to get the time put into you that you would need to build anything. So I think, the team to sort of build you up. And if you're a musician that's really, really good at that stuff yourself, do what you can yourself. I think myself, I would benefit from like a manager, someone who's a bit more pushy, because that's not my way of a person, as being like super pushy. So I think I would be someone who would benefit from that, and having someone with really good like direction and the contacts to get you there. Like we all, as a musician, have like desires of where we would want to be or where we want to go, but you don't necessarily know the people, and if you do contact the people, they don't know you, to be like, I'll reply to that email, it just gets an email that's just like, I don't know who that is. So it's just having those people that can unlock doors for you. But I do think it is what you can do yourself until you can't, basically.
How do you feel about all these social media thing, the TikTok and Instagram, and do you think personally for you, has it helped you to grow as an artist, or?
Not really. I think obviously it's a new thing that's never in the history of music, it's never been a thing, and it can be, obviously it has its positives and it has its negatives. If you are really savvy with that world and you are a great musician, you can showcase that and use the algorithm to your advantage and know how to use it. I'm not that savvy with social media, so I get a bit frustrated by it myself. Obviously it's a great tool for promoting stuff. Like you've got people who will go on, see you in a gig, follow you up, and then that's basically the old school, like the mailing list. You don't really need to do the mailing list anymore because you've got the social media, you've got stories. So that's a big positive. I think my problem with it is sort of the emphasis on the numbers by the people in charge. So like labels, managers, if you could be putting out great music, but if you haven't got so many followers, so much engagement, they're not going to touch you. Whereas you as a musician, you could be unbelievable, and all you need is that chance. They could take a bet on you, and you could just like go to the stars or whatever. So the emphasis on social media at the minute, for me, I'm not the biggest fan, especially when you're seeing like the TikTok thing with people that aren't musicians and then getting these huge deals and stuff. And you could just say that's just jealousy because that's not you. But it's not. It's more of a principle of like, I know so many great musicians who've like dedicated years upon years to like craft their musicianship and really hone the skills, and they're unbelievable. But they've got like 100 followers on Instagram and no one pays them attention. So for me, it's frustrating. But I do think that it's going to come round. I think it's going to realise that we're putting all the eggs in the basket here of these TikTok people, but the product we're getting back isn't actually very good. And then there might be a time in music where the music's not very good that's coming out. And I think there's always going to be room for musicians like Spotify is still a great like thing to be in. Like if you get Spotify playlist, you put a song and you get on a Spotify playlist and it's got like loads of ears. I personally think if I was like a label or someone looking at musicians to sign up, I'd be looking at the Spotify numbers and like monthly listeners to get the followers, because for me, if you want to earn money, that's more important. So you see people who've got really high like TikTok engagement but really low Spotify engagement, and they're getting better opportunities than the people who've got more listeners on the Spotify. So the whole thing at the minute is really messed up.
I agree. It's a bit of a tricky one on that one.
Super tricky.
Don't get me wrong. I think from a business perspective, like for example, if I was an investor and I was going to invest in an artist, obviously I want to make sure that this investment is gonna goes both way.
Well, yeah.
I don't really want to, like, for example, invest in an artist and then I don't really see any return. It's not gonna be good for me. It's not gonna be good for the artist either.
Yeah.
But at the same time, as we discussed it before, those numbers can be tricky because you can buy those numbers literally now.
Exactly now.
So it's not really true numbers. So those numbers don't really stand for a real thing. If you have genuine interaction with your fans, that brings a lot more value.
Exactly, totally.
My perspective, if you have like 1,000 followers that are genuine people who are interacting with your content, and your music and yourself, that holds so much value rather than just having 100,000 followers that they don't really do anything in your platform. They're just sitting there and it's just a number.
Exactly, that's the thing. Like, you prefer to have 10 hardcore fans that come to every single gig than like 100 who don't really care that much about you and they'll come to the odd gig. You would prefer the 10 people that you're going to sell a ticket to every single thing. So that's sort of the same thing. But it's difficult, isn't it? It's just like, it's still very young, like in terms of the music industry. It's like the past 10 years maybe it's been a thing in the history of music. So it's a world that we've found ourselves in and just need to learn how to navigate it. But then, if you're a musician that really maybe you're just not into it at all, and you really like playing gigs, and at your gigs you get people through the door, like that could be the thing that matters to you as a musician. Obviously, as musicians we have different like desires of what we would like. Some people will be happy that they've got 1,000 people that listen to everything, and that's incredible. Or there's the whole like social media part where you can go to like millions of people and try and build something. It just depends what you really want as a musician as well.
But at the end of the day, obviously that's my opinion. At the end of the day, I think I have to adapt with those changes.
Well, you've got to,
there is no other way around, because that's the way that it's going,
Exactly.
and I wouldn't really be able personally to change anything.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's like it's the same exact like if you remember back in the days, we had to go to the bank to do any transaction, but nowadays you can do it in the phone.
Yeah.
You know, and it would. I don't really think I wanna waste my time. In the beginning, if you maybe remember, a lot of people were very skeptical. Oh, should I trust the app? You know what I mean? But almost everyone had a transition to just use the app because it's convenient, because it's faster. I don't want to spend like an hour, half an hour going to the bank and coming back. So I think it's the same thing with any industry.
It's the same, yeah.
It's the transition that it's gonna have, and I'm gonna have to.
You're just gonna have to learn it.
Weigh my ways around adapting myself to the industry. You've actually mentioned that your father is a musician. So is your mother a musician as well, or?
No, but from her side of the family, there are musicians there. So her cousin, so my second cousin on her side, he's in the band. He's a drummer in the Yardbirds. It's like a 60s band. So he was. There's always been that aspect as well, having someone in quite a big band at the time. And then I think someone else played the piano or something. It's always one of those. So I have sort of got
musical family
on both sides.
I always refer it to as a privilege, not because if somebody doesn't have it, they can't get there. I always refer it as a privilege because I think obviously you were born into it, but at the same time I think that privilege makes you to be ahead of time because you were born in an environment that you were listening to music. There were people in the house who were interested in music, so you had the chance to listen to those, to be in that environment, in that atmosphere, and be influenced by it subconsciously.
Totally.
And I think that really has an effect. Obviously, down the line, you had to make your choice. You had to make your own choice to just say, okay, this is something that I want to do, or this is something that I don't want to do. But have you felt any pressure from the family pushing you toward this industry, or even the other way around, like telling you don't do this? This is
no, not really. No pressure. I think I'm quite lucky that my family are very supportive, so they're happy that I'm doing music. They're not like someone who'd be saying don't do that, you're wasting your time, because you know there are people who've got parents that could be like that. But then I've never really been pressured into doing anything really. I think it was just more, even like I started playing the guitar later because it wasn't like here's a guitar, learn how to play the guitar. It was just more like I found it myself, and they're like, oh cool, like you're actually interested in it, and just let me. And then my sister's a musician as well. She plays piano and sings, and she's got like all the grades and everything, but then but is now got like a proper job and stuff, but it was never something she would have wanted to do as a career. But for me, I think it's just always been, my parents would just let me be me. Probably found that like I am onto something. Like it wasn't like I was trying to play, I wanted to be a musician and maybe just didn't have the capabilities to do it. Like if you're trying to be a singer and you couldn't sing, like it's not one of those situations. It's just they've just let me be, accepted choices, were happy that I chose music as well. It wasn't anything negative, but then it wasn't a point of them saying you should be doing this with your life. It was very much my own decision, and me finding the music myself and then finding my own interest. Because I am sort of one of those people, if I'm not interested in something, I'm just not going to give it like the time of day to. But because of like the music, I really fell in love with it and became obsessed with it. That's when I am one of those person, like I get obsessed with things. So I became obsessed with the guitar, and then it was writing, and then it was singing, and I've really like put the effort in to improve things myself. But from a point of if I was pressured or not pressured, no, it's just always been myself, my decision.
Do you think playing an instrument is important as being a musician, or you can be a musician without playing any instrument?
it's quite a difficult one. I think it really helps if you're quite good at either like guitar or piano, because if you're just a singer, then you're gonna have to rely on people. So like if you can't play guitar but you sing really well, then you need a guitarist. Whereas if you can play the instrument, you can just go up yourself. You don't have to rely on people, which I think is a big thing in this industry. But I think as a product, my advice would be like get really proficient at an instrument, because when someone gets up at like an open mic or something and they're a good guitar player and they can sing as well, they stand out because the whole product is really good. If you're sort of like half-arsing the guitar just to be there, it comes across that way. So my advice, if you're like a singer, would be really like focus on an instrument and get proficient. And either like guitar or piano, whatever you find, whatever just gravitates to you more.
It's just another like tool
exactly
in your toolbox.
And you never know what you could do. Like you could get really into the guitar and you could be amazing, and then you could be like a session player or something. Like it's like there's so much stuff in the music industry. I think when you say to someone who's maybe a bit ignorant to the industry, like you say to like a family friend, like I want to be a musician, they're like, oh, good luck with that. Like I think there's so much in music that you can do. You could be a great writer, like you could go do songwriting, you can do production, you could be an artist, you could work in A&R, you could work for the companies themselves. Like there's so much in music that you could do. So I think like just like sort of like play the field of things and like learn things, and like you'll naturally find things that like I didn't even think I'd love this, but I'm really into this right now, and you get really good at it. Like production, like maybe you didn't think you were going to get into it, and then you get really into production. You're like, this is really cool, and you just want to sit in your bedroom for hours and make songs and do stuff, and then that could be an avenue for you to take. Like it's ever changing. Like for me right now, I'd love to be an artist, but maybe, you know, like a publishing company wants me to be a writer or something in the future, and then that's what I become. Like you just never know. Obviously we have a goal and what we would like, but with life you've got to adapt.
Sure.
But yeah, on the question of an instrument, my advice would be learn one and learn it quite well.
One instrument, yeah. You mentioned that you studied, right? Do you think that had a positive impact on you as a musician?
I think it has helped. Probably more from a guitar player's point of view. Having lessons, like I am a much better guitar player I was now than before I went to university. Because you do learn things that maybe you wouldn't learn because you wouldn't have someone to teach you them and you wouldn't really think about them. But I could see how people could go to and study music and become really disillusioned by it, and the whole structure of it be just a turn off. Like for me, in the moment when I was doing it, I was like struggling as a guitar player. It had like a negative effect on me. I was playing worse, but then I got through it, and now I'm better. So it sort of just depends. I think for me, when I was doing the course, I just took the things I wanted to take and ignored the things I wasn't interested in. I think it is important that you still have your own sort of thoughts as a musician, the things that sort of make you tick as a musician, like keep those parts of you, because if you lose them, like you could lose like the magic or something, I'm not too sure. And I can see how maybe being in it all the time could maybe cause people to like maybe lose the love for it, because then you're studying it and you're doing essays on it and stuff. But for me, it was a great experience, and it's not one that I would regret. But maybe if you're interested in it, really think about it. Because I could see why people could like get the flame burnt out with them a little bit, being in that environment, going into rooms where like we did like improv classes where it'd be in a room as a band, and it would sort of be like a structured jam. So then they would be giving you like theoretical things. So then he'd be like, I want you to play like this scale, this note, and that for me was like a different world from my thinking. So I was like really terrible in those things. And that was maybe like a confidence hit where you're thinking like, I am so terrible right now. But then you just get through it. You've just got to believe in yourself, think for yourself as a musician, do what you want to do the things that you think is, like for me, music, just do what you think's cool. If it's cool to you, do it.
When you face those feelings of anger, stress, how do you approach to manage them as a musician?
I think I'm someone who kind of like maybe takes things a bit head on and just tries to deal with them in the moment. Never sort of like hide away from it or make those feelings make you not do something. So like gigging's a big thing. Like loads of people get really anxious and really nervous. Like don't let those feelings overcome you in the moment that you would not do something. Or it's easier to say like don't let it affect like a performance or something, because sometimes you cannot control. It's like just something that's happening and you can't like suppress it. Like it's just there. But for me, I think I am someone who maybe takes things head on a bit more. Even like with the singing thing, like I used to like cower away from singing, and like I probably was a bit scared to sing, and then I realised that this is something I'm going to have to do because this is what I want to do. And I can't just like have these dreams of being a musician and stuff but not actually go and play live and stuff. So then I forced myself to go and do the open mic, and you're terrified, but you go and do it because you know it's going to aid you in the long run. If you want to do it, you just got to do it. Like that's a big part.
Just remember what he said is, I'm going to have to overcome those stress and pressure, because we got to remember that those feelings are going to be there if you want to move along with life. I mean, if you want to go forward in life, those pressures are going to even get worse. Right? But we got to learn our way to be able to round them off or be able to control them in a way that it's not going to harm us.
Exactly. Yeah.
But even every day-to-day life is going to be sometimes stressful. But I think it's my job to learn how I'm going to deal with those feelings, those stresses, those pressures.
Exactly.
You know, that was really interesting. So you were saying?
But that comes with things like fear. If you're scared of something, the way to overcome it is you do it. So with those feelings, it's something that you've got to like maybe just think, this is what I'm feeling right now, and I'm feeling it. Don't try and suppress it. That's what you're feeling. But you've just got to learn how to do overcome things. And I think a big part in like the music world is learning how to overcome things yourself and not using other things to get over them. So like maybe don't get in the habit of having a drink before you get up and play because it makes you feel better. I think it's a big thing. I think that if you've just got to tackle things head on and learn how to maneuver your way through things yourself, because I think that is a dangerous thing that a lot of musicians can find themselves into, is like, this thing makes this thing easier, so I'm going to do that every time, which is not a great thing. It's not a great habit to get into. I think and also the more you do something as well, so just from like a performance anxiety point of view, like the more you get up and play, the less anxious you feel.
True.
So that can go with a lot of things, that just taking things head on and maybe just getting used to it a little bit and like accepting the feeling can then make you grow stronger as a human. You learn how to get through those things and not let them get you down as much.
It's the same exact thing as going to the gym. When you go to the gym every day, you feel good.
Exactly.
But even if you don't do it for a couple of weeks and you go back to it, your body is still feeling a bit sore. It's the same exact thing with performance.
Exactly.
You know, if you don't do it for a while, even a couple of weeks, you're gonna feel that feeling. Oh my God!
Exactly.
It's gonna come to you.
Yeah.
But you gotta make sure that you just keep doing it,
Exactly.
keep doing it. Otherwise, it's just gonna be
It gets
a bit
easier every time.
100%.
Yeah.
So, how many songs have you released so far?
So I've got 4 released, the EP in this current moment, and then next week there's a single coming out, so it will be 5.
Do you wanna say what's it called?
When We Say Goodbye.
When We Say Goodbye. What's the date that's gonna be released?
7th of October.
When We Say Goodbye, 7th of October. Check it out, yeah? So do you think it's a number game? I asked that question. I think it's a very important question. With all the social media platforms that we talked about and all the pressure and everything. Do you think it's a number game? If you had a chance to go either with quality or quantity?
Gotta go quality.
Gotta go quality.
All the time, yeah.
Okay.
There is something to the quantity thing, releasing things and keeping people having something, but I think as an artist, you're creating art and you've got to make the best art that you possibly can. That maybe in 10 years' time, I'm not doing music as a career because it didn't happen for me, but I can look back and think I made some great art and I was a part of that. And like, I am so proud of that piece of art that I have got. I think that is such an important thing that you've just got to do the best you can. I would prefer to release a song a year and it be just like, I think that is incredible and I'm very proud of that, than think of things and thinking, not sure about that. Because like for me, I am a bit of a perfectionist as well. So if I couldn't release something that I was semi-happy with, like I just couldn't do it myself.
My subconscious mind totally agrees with you.
Yeah.
Because I'm a perfectionist myself. But during the years, I realized being perfectionist, don't get me wrong, it's good, but it's hurting me a bit.
Definitely does, yeah.
But if I think I gotta hold myself and don't put anything till it becomes the so-called perfect, I think it's gonna stop my presence out there, which is especially very important nowadays. I think as we discussed it before and we talked about it, when I start a journey, there is a beginning, but there is no end. And I think it's good for my audience, your audience, or anybody's audience in any career to see that progress. You know, I was like making a okay song. After 2 years, I'm making a brilliant song. After 10 years, I'm making a song. And I think that journey is beautiful. Yeah. But I think one of the problems that comes from social media that puts the image of the perfect person, the perfect thing out there, subconsciously play around with our minds, putting that image and pattern and paradigm in our mind that everything has to be perfect. I have to look perfect. I have to be perfect to exist out there. I can hold this song for another 10 years. In 10 years, it's going to be an amazing song. But there's not much of me out there. But if I release, for example, 200 songs in that 10 years, everybody can see my journey starting from 0 to 100. And at the same time, they can relate to me. There are a lot of artists at every step of the way that I'm in that journey that can relate to me. Even people can see my journey. I can see my own progress, you know. How do you network? So how do you find, first of all, do you collaborate? And how do you find collaboration? If you have a couple of tips that how people, musicians can find collaborators to work with, how do you personally do them?
Well, mine, because my sort of like this whole the whole project, I hate that word, but that's what it is at the minute, is the KIT project technically. That it basically is collaboration because I'm co-writing the songs. But that was just me being extremely lucky and knowing like a really top songwriter and producer and sort of, so I got into that. Basically, I was going to release a song a few years ago when I was in university, and I sent it to him saying, what do you think? And then he was like, this is great, yeah, let's like do stuff together. But he is a professional songwriter, so that's not something of the norm. That is just something of me just being extremely lucky that I've got this opportunity. But I think for other people, like obviously going to like an institute for music has that benefit of networking because you're just amongst musicians. So that was how basically I've networked, was going to there and being amongst musicians every day and thinking like, let's write a song, and just doing that casually. Like you don't even have to think about like, this is a song to release. No, just like collaborate with people. Because if you're a songwriter, get used to co-writing because it's like that's part of the business. And it is, when you co-write, it is a different thing to writing on your own. Like when you write on your own, it's very insular and you can just like take the time. Like there's no pressure. Like when you're with someone, there is a pressure to think, I don't want to say this because I'm not quite sure. But then that is also building relationships with people, like where there is a no judgment room where you can just go in and like you can say things and they can be like, that is awful, and you're like, cool, next thing. So I think co-writing is like a big part. So, but if you're not in a position where you go to a college or a university where you're amongst musicians, then go to gigs. Go on like the local scene and try and meet people and be regular. Like they know your face. Like get chatting to people. If there's like an artist you really like, you've just watched them playing at an open mic or something, go up to them, chat after and just say like, I'm a musician myself, like give the socials.
You're open about it.
Just that's what you got to do. I think like if that's your thing to collaborate, like I think a lot of musicians can maybe the collaboration thing can be a bit daunting because the whole songwriting thing or making music can be very vulnerable and you're sort of getting these things out that are in your brain. You can always have that as a songwriter. You always write songs on your own, but learn to write with other people as well. So a great networking thing is just going out to gigs and chatting to people and like go to people that you really like and just be like, I thought that was really cool. Would you be interested in meeting up for like a writing session or something? But I do think like collaboration is a big part. And also it's just great to have other people's input on things. Like, you know, even if you've like written a song yourself and you've got your mate who's a musician, you can be like, what do you think of this? And they'll give you an honest answer. They could be like, yeah, it's not like your best, or like, that's really cool. And then, you know, but then you also get that from gigging as well. You can sort of gauge audiences, how a song is perceived. But I do think collaboration is a big part. And there's also, you know, social media. Like if there's people online that you really like to stuff, send them a message just saying like, I'm local, We have got like, it's easier now than ever to network. So, and it's not, you know, the social media thing, maybe you're going to send messages out to people, not get replies because people don't check the requests, or you don't know who you are, or whatever reason. But I think, social media, go to gigs, like meet people, and then if you go into like a college, just speak to people and just do music with people. It's an interesting change when you do it for the first time. Even now, like when I'm writing with Mike, because I kind of look up to him as that songwriter musician, that sometimes I go in and it is a bit daunting to be like trying to put ideas to someone. But you know, you just got to get over that, and that's go back to obstacles and things that we talked about earlier. That's another one. You've just got to learn in the vulnerability of things sometimes, that you know, I'm gonna feel horrible saying this because I'm gonna be really vulnerable, but just put it out there. And it's always worse in our head when I say something to someone. It's always, the reaction is always better than you think.
Yeah, what's the worst that can happen? You know.
But yeah,
you gotta say no. That's it. You gotta go to and ask somebody else, right?
Exactly. So yeah, that's it. Like online, go to gigs. If you're in uni or whatever, just speak to people. Yeah,
that's it. Easy.
Yeah, easy.
Okay, tell me, do you have a mentor, or do you have like somebody that you go to for making your musical choices?
I'd say Mike Halls, who I write with. He's sort of like, because he used to teach me guitar and stuff, there's always been that sort of relationship. And then now we're working together, it's very much like he is, you know, I get a lot of advice from him. And I really respect his opinion. And obviously we write together and we like sort of like make sure like we do the same. He does like the artwork for me and stuff, and then I've got like the ideas for photos, and then we do the photos together and stuff. So I'm very lucky to have like a mentor relationship. as a musician, because I think that can be really important, having someone
Absolutely.
to like who you respect their opinion and you can sort of take it if you like
Absolutely.
even like send them stuff or ideas for this is how I want to sort of put this song out or whatever, that he's like, I always ask his advice and stuff, and it's always a very good answer I get back. So it's
So
like,
you don't really have to go through all those experiences again. You can
exactly,
just,
yeah,
it's going to give you a bit of a boost, at
Mhm.
least. I would
Yeah,
definitely
totally,
say
yeah.
that's really good. So do you have plan B? So if plan A
Plan
doesn't
B.
work, let's just say, I'm not really saying that it's not going to work.
no, it's
It's just a question that is in a lot of people's mind.
yeah,
A lot of people say, okay, should I go for a 9 to 5 job?
yeah,
What should I do? How should I support myself financially?
yeah.
So do you have a plan B?
I've got ideas. I have thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
Especially like, you know, through COVID and stuff, like I think everyone's like lost 2 years of, especially with music, you have got like a time frame sort of. So I've sort of given myself till like I'm 30 to be in a position maybe, because I think for me I've been like doing the same thing for a while and it's like got very boring. And then like the music thing, it's very frustrating. Like you're trying to build this music thing and then sometimes you're trying to like book gigs and you can't get gigs because you're not getting replied and stuff. But I've kind of, so my plan B is I've got a couple of different ideas of things like that I might be interested in, but for me, I've got the one thing I really want to do before I would change direction of music, not be a thing, is like just do something like really cool. So like even like go and live in Spain teaching English for like 2 years or something, like just do something, a bit of a change before going into like a real job. Or, you know, like you can do a thing with Canada where you can get like a 2-year visa if you're a UK resident, and then you can just do whatever job you want, but you can, it's like a work and it's like a travel visa, so you can travel around and work places for like so many months. So like you work on a ranch for like 3 months across the summer or something. I'd like to do something like that before I like commit to a career maybe.
Okay. So you have a plan B.
A vague plan B.
Why?
I've given myself a cut-off point.
Why?
Just because for me, I just want a point where I can sort of like start. Don't really feel like I've started my life yet, and I don't want to. But like my 30 would be, if I've got irons in the fire and things going on, then I'll keep going. But if I'm in my position now, where I haven't really, you know, you're just sort of like still sort of like crawling onto things, I think I would like to then maybe like go and do like a career and get something a bit more structured, that's a bit more secure, because there is that thing of, as a musician, that your future's always, you just don't know. And that is something that could be exciting for people, but for me it can be a bit draining, and I think I could only take so much of it before I'm like, yeah, like I'm not doing this anymore. So it's like that's just a cut-off point for me if I'm not, you know, not in any sort of place where I'd want to be. That's just what I've put over myself. And then if you're talking about jobs and stuff, then I'll be thinking I am a person that I need to do something I enjoy. So I would have to really think about what I would be interested in. I don't particularly think I could do like a 9 to 5 office job. I think I would like to be something a bit more like hands-on or outdoors or something. Yeah, because I think I'm someone, I value sort of like, you could go and get a job that pays really well, but you might not be very happy doing that job. And I would not really want to be doing that. I'd prefer to do like, you get paid less, but you actually enjoy going to work or something.
Would it be the case of you completely drop music, or?
No, I think I'd always do it as like a creative outlet and something. I might even release music and stuff still, but it might not be a point that like my whole life is revolved around this thing.
Okay.
Like for me now, I've got like a dog walking business.
Okay.
I do that because it's really flexible. So like if I get a writing session, I can book a day off and just say I'm busy.
Okay.
And then I can go and do that. So I haven't got like, I'm not tied down to a boss or a rota. So I've got that freedom to do music. and I can kind of only do that for so long before I need to go and maybe get something that pays better or, you know, whatever. So yeah, I've kind of got like a vague plan B. The main plan B is just go and do something cool before you go and start something. And then I've just got that just cut off point that, you know, it could change. I could get to 30 and not be ready yet, and then I'm just like, okay, I'll keep going. But that's just a vague thing for me at the minute. Yeah.
So let's get into the creation process. Okay, when you want to create music, what's the first step that you do?
Guitar comes first usually for me. Normally just like playing about on the guitar, getting cool chords or something.
So like finding a vibe, kind of.
Yeah, it's just more that, and they just come out of nowhere sometimes. Because I just sit like watching TV with a guitar, just like noodling about, and then you might just noodle something that sounds like, oh, that's cool, and then just build on it, and then get something a bit more structured. And then if I've got like the harmony down, then I would just be like, you can just like, you just sing gibberish, just like random words, and you find that one word that suits perfectly in that moment, and you're like, okay, so like it could be like a really like important word that like really means something. You're like, okay, so that's what the song's kind of about. And then there's kind of like the weird thing with music is the subconscious brain puts things out to you, and you're like, I know what I'm writing about actually. Or you could go into a song thinking like, this is a burning issue and I really need to, like, the cathartic energy of getting this out. But for me, a lot of the time they just sort of come out of nowhere. I think songs are weird. You don't know how you've written it, but you've written it. And then, yeah, so for me, like, lyrics kind of probably come last, but I am sort of always thinking of expressions and stuff as you're walking down the road. You're like, oh, that's cool, and you get like your notes on your phone, you write it down, and you've got. So then if you are struggling with a song, you've got like loads of like just lines, and you can think how fit or like change that line because that'll fit perfectly.
So you go with the composition and arrangement first,
then
you go with the lyric. Okay.
Yeah, you can just get melodies sometimes though, like if you're driving down the road and then you're just like singing to yourself and like you just like got like a really cool like verse melody, and you're like, oh, that's cool, and then the lyrics come, and then you've got to go home and figure out what it is on the guitar. But mainly for me, it's harmony first, then everything comes later.
Do you use any production softwares?
Well, I've got Logic on my laptop.
Got Logic.
So just for like basic demos and stuff, but nothing too fancy. It's just more just getting the idea and like getting a vibe of a song out that I could like take to people or something.
And then when you wrote the lyric, you mix and master it yourself, or you send it to somebody else to mix.
Well, the songs I've released, I've got them mixed and mastered from someone else, just more professional, because I couldn't mix to their level at all. I think it's just like a totally different thing for me. So I would, I think it's worth paying for a good mix.
100%.
I would probably never do it myself unless I was just putting a little thing on SoundCloud as like a totally different name, just a little fun side project or something. But I think for like a full-on project, like, it's a big thing. Like getting the sonic right of a song is really important.
And after when it's ready, do you have like a release strategy?
Well, the songs that I've released it's been a bit skewed because of the world I released them in the COVID world. That was very much, and obviously it went through a label. So like the first single, Warm, that I released, that sort of went through like PR, and like it got loads like magazines and stuff like that. And then the other ones, it was just putting them on social media. And this time, for the newer single, I've obviously got a bit more freedom to play about. So for me, it's just going to be performing the songs live. It's just like how I like to do things. So I played a couple of gigs and sort of put the feelers out there, and I've played the song live, and like, this is out next month, and then it'll just be, then you get to the social media thing. I'm sure an announcement will go out this week sometime of like, this is going to be coming out next week. Because my releases have always come like the week before, just like, this is coming out next Friday. I've been one to have like a long-winded release date, because I feel like you can do that when you're at maybe a certain point in your career where you've got loads of people like begging for music. But for me, it's just like, this is out next week. I hope you like it. But this song, because it's the new single, is so different from the other one. Like all my social media is just gonna get totally replaced. Like everything's gonna get archived. It's just gonna be starting fresh, like a new era sort of thing. And all the visuals are different. Clothes are different. I really thought about it from a visual aspect. I haven't got any music videos or anything just because of the cost of music videos. Quite expensive. But I'm hoping to maybe get a performance video out for this one. Not long after the release. But yeah, it's nothing too fancy really. Just using social media, using gigs and getting out in front of people. I still think that's a really valuable thing. And then obviously it doesn't hurt to email like magazines and things, just get them out, local magazines, local radio stations, try and just email people, try and get them on there. And then you've obviously got Spotify playlists, always like apply for the playlist, try and get it on something, you know, you could get, because on the first EP I was lucky enough to get like quite a big playlist just from the applying thing. So you never know with Spotify, if just one person in Spotify picks it up and like, whoa, this is cool, I'll put it on this. And then that's how you get ears on there. So yeah, mine's pretty basic, it's not too fancy. Because my whole thing is like, I think like the song is really cool and the whole thing is just going to be like, this song's like so cool. And I hope you like it. Sort of thing. Cause
have you came across like something that you've done online on your social platform and just the video or that sound like took off, that you thought, oh, that is cool, like I should do this more, like a technique or
no, I did a thing on TikTok for a while when I first got into it. I did just because I was in Liverpool and obviously the Beatles, I just did like basically just walked around Allerton, is where I'm from. Yeah. Just basically walk around and just like I did a little clip of the video and then just compiled them and put them up and just put like a Beatles song on the back of it, and then you just got loads of engagement off like that. Like social media wise, they're the biggest things I've had. But then it's a bit tricky now with TikTok and copyright claims and stuff to get the music on. So they're just like muted videos now. And I kind of ran out of stuff because there's only so much stuff you can do.
Because I think they started monetization as well.
Yeah.
Right? That's probably why.
Yeah. So they all got muted. But at that time, that was like quite a cool thing, and it was quite fun to do, just walking around and just I'd literally just do that onto the thing and just compile a video, put a song over it, put it out. But for me, it's like the music point of view. There's nothing really that's like I've done and it's like hit and gone semi-viral or anything. I think like the only thing that's done well on like a platform for me is YouTube. Just the songs have done well on YouTube. And that was just because I've got like the video game and I've got loads of people coming from that aspect. But as a social media savviness, nothing really. Nothing.
So if you want to name 3 elements that you think would be important for someone who wants to step into musical career, what would those 3 would be?
Firstly, you got to be good enough. Like you got to have a talent level to do it, and obviously that can vary. On the music industry, it's crazy. It's not really. It's like it's an industry built on talent, where it's not necessarily the most talented people at the top. So like just because you're not a virtuoso musician doesn't mean you can't have a career in music or whatever. But I think you've got to have like a certain level. You have to be pretty disciplined to get to that level. You've got to you can be naturally gifted at an instrument, but you've also got to put the hours in to really bring the gift out.
Absolutely.
And then third thing, I think you just got to be pretty hardworking or resilient. Resilient is probably the most important thing because it's not an easy industry to get into. You're gonna have times where you feel like it's never going to happen for you, but you just got to keep going. Like an example from someone like I really like is like Joe Bonamassa. He's like a good blues guitar player. He's like one of the biggest in that world, and he's always his whole life labels didn't want to know anything about it, so he's just done everything himself, built up his own company. Now he's like one of the biggest like blues artists, and but it does help that he's just like a machine on the guitar. But resilience, I think, is super important, because you could give up before you even get going. And I think probably a lot of people do, because it's not an easy thing. It's a hard life to choose to go and do music. It's not a life that a lot of people can understand what it is like to be either that sort of feeling of constantly not knowing. It's like a cloud above your head every day. So yeah, resilience is my third one.
Resilience, yeah. So vinyls, streaming, what's the next step? But what do you think is gonna happen? Like how we're gonna consume music?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because who would have thought vinyl would be back? Like vinyl's a really big thing again now, and everyone thought that was dead. So it's an interesting one, the consumption of music, but obviously that's going to coincide with technology, and I think phones are only going to become more and more important and become so many things. It's already it's already your credit, it's like your debit card, it's already your camera, it's already your recorder, it's like everything. It's going to become more and more important. So I think it's always going to be tied in for the masses. Maybe, you're always going to get people who are always maybe going to have a tape machine, but it's never going to be a mass consumed thing. Vinyl is currently on a really cool moment, but it's still not like everyone's got a vinyl player like in the past. It's not like that. It's kind of like people who appreciate music have got vinyl players. I think it's always going to be, I think streaming is going to become a thing, and maybe it's not going to be the same platforms we've got now. Maybe Spotify gets replaced, like you see with social media. You see Facebook's being replaced by Instagram, Instagram's being replaced by Facebook. Like these companies are always going to come. So I think it'll always be, as a mass consumption, will always be a type of streaming, just because I think phones are more important now than ever. And I think that is, it's a positive. It's got positives and negatives. It would be nice just to have a phone that is just a phone. Sometimes, you haven't got the temptations of social media and stuff on your phone. But I do think, the future is probably in streaming still.
It's still streaming.
Yeah, or some sort. Just the easiest way possible, and that is just the easiest for most people is streaming. You can't walk around with a vinyl player. If you're going for a walk, you've got your phone and headphones in. So I think streaming probably.
If you had a chance to change one thing about music industry, what would that be?
I would prefer good art to be the thing, not easy fix and easy money. I think that would be the one thing that just like people who are making really great art get the recognition they deserve. Because how many times like you see people on Spotify page, you've got like incredible songs and they've got like 100 monthly listeners or something. You're just like, that person deserves so much more. So that would be my one change.
Where do you see yourself in 10 years? Where do you want to be in 10 years? What's the ideal place?
The ideal would be me as a artist playing shows regularly and getting people in the door. I think as a musician, you should just aim for the stars and see how high you can get. You might not get you might not be selling out arenas, but if you could be playing shows. For me, I would just love to be in a position where I could go on like two tours a year, and you're going and you're selling out shows, even if it's in like an O2 Academy. It's like if people are actually interested in like my music and coming out to see me, and you can pay the bills, like that's all I'm interested in really. That is my ideal. If I was in 10 years, just be doing music and being able to just get by doing it.
Kid, last words.
For people who are musicians, just keep doing it and do what you think is cool. I think that's like the main thing. Just do what you think is cool.
Very simple.
Yeah.
Very simple. It was such a pleasure.
It's a pleasure
to have you in our podcast. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
For people who are watching this, make sure you go to the description. I'm gonna put his social media links, his latest song down below in the description. Make sure you go there, give him a follow, and listen to his songs. See you soon.
Thanks, Will.